Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo. As always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go in to the breach. And we just want to take the opportunity to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. That's right, Joe Resinello. It's not Happy Holidays, okay? It's Merry Christmas, and that's what we're wishing everybody. I'll tell you what, Joe, it's sad when you get to the point where, so you greet somebody, let's say the other day, the end of last week, I'm at work and somebody says, says, hi, how are you? Oh, nice to see you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. It's like you said something wrong to the person because you wished them a Merry Christmas. It really is sad. But we want to thank you all for being here. Remember, Joe and I are always on the Crusade channel, Monday night show. We would encourage you all to become premium members of the Crusade channel on YouTube. Many of you are watching us on Frontline TV, the Frontline TV. Share that with your friends. Share that on Facebook. Like the video, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. That really helps us. That's the primary social media platform right now that Joe and I, with our producer Jonathan Ross, are promoting, the Frontline TV. And remember, Joe and I have a Tuesday and Thursday noontime interview show on the Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 on your AM dial, 103.9, on your FM dial, serving Connecticut, Westchester, and Northern Long Island. But you can download the app so that you can have access to all of our station's content, and you could get all of Joe and my interviews over the last several months. There's about 35 to 40 of them. So we really appreciate all your help. We certainly appreciate all your prayers. So let's get into it, because I did say Merry Christmas, and of course I know there are maybe some non-Catholic Christians out there, but however, it's Merry Christmas for you too, okay? And you appreciate that we use the words Merry Christmas and Merry Christmas, Joe. Let's define what we mean, okay? Because I can already hear some people thinking we're Americanizing Christmas in this conversation. We're not, okay? Christmas is the celebration of the incarnation of the Word of God, the second person of the Blessed Trinity. That's what it is, okay? In reality, okay? And that is exactly what we're celebrating. Now, is that what this conversation is about? Well, we're going to talk about how that very celebration, okay, is actually good for America, but we're not going to talk to you about it from our point of view, okay? From a Catholic point of view. Don Feder, who's very good friends with Bill Donahue of the Catholic League, wrote an article in the Washington Times that Bill Donahue then reprinted for the Catholic League, and he's a Jew. And his argument in his article is why Christmas is good for America. And Joe and I decided, you know what? Yeah, we want to lay it out there. Why is Christmas good for America? And we think he lays out a very good point about it, and we want to talk about this. Of course, after that, we're going to talk about how the left is completely miserable. Joe Resinello, they're miserable, as my mother would say, my 82-year-old Italian mother. The left is a miserable, okay? These people don't know how to smile. They are completely bereft of any sort of joy whatsoever. According to Eddie Scarry at the Federalist, they don't spread cheer, they spread grief. We think he's exactly right, and we're going to talk about that. And then finally, talk about miserable. All this feminist wants for Christmas is more teenagers killing their babies in abortions. And this is an article that we're going to allude to from David Andrusko at Life News. And that's exactly what it is. Feminists that think that the Christmas message, Joe, you gotta get this stuff, man. I mean, it's depressing sometimes. The Christmas message, what to be grateful for at this time of the year, is that more teenagers should have access to baby killing. I mean, this is what we're up against. Joe Resinello, having said all this, I'm going to hand it over to you so that you could tell everybody out there, and we can get into the conversation, why Christmas is good for America.
Well, as Joe said, Don Feder, he wrote this in the Catholic League. He's friends with a good friend of ours, Bill Donahue. We've interviewed him twice. Bill's all over the place. He puts out a lot of good content. If you are not familiar with the Catholic League, you should definitely check it out. So this is what Federer says. I don't celebrate the holiday. He's referring to Christmas, obviously, but I support its public celebration robustly. Christmas is something that brings us closer as a people. Now he's talking about himself. He says, as a Jew, I have no problem with Christmas trees in parks or nativity scenes in front of City Hall. Whether or not they're camouflaged with Santas or snowmen, they are reminders of our religious heritage. As much as the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, Christmas unites us as a people. Christmas has a venerable lineage, although the custom of the gaily festooned tree only goes back to the 19th century. I did not know that, Joe Pasillo. I just
I
learned
didn't know that.
something. The gift giving tradition is said to be inspired by the wise men who journeyed to Bethlehem. I did know that. I give, what does he say here? I give not because I want something in return, but as an expression of love. Now let's talk about the fact that he isn't even a Christian. And he's stating this. You see, that is a person who's comfortable in his own shoes. Ben Stein, a long time ago, made a similar statement. This is when I read this, it reminded me. Those who may not know who Ben Stein is, he was a comedian, very dry sense of humor. He's a Jewish individual, and he also does commentary. He's a pretty smart guy. Anyway, he said the same thing. He's just like, I am not threatened by Christmas. Why? Because he's comfortable in his own religious shoes. It's people who aren't. And that's where we allow them to rob our holiday from us. I'll be honest with you. If someone said to me, because Hanukkah comes before Christmas, said to me, Happy Hanukkah. A, I'm not Jewish, but B, I'm not offended. I'm not offended by that. And I'll wish you a happy Hanukkah. Happily enjoy your holiday. Enjoy it. But why should people take away my holiday? And why can't I acknowledge the holiday? In some circles, you say that people like jump down your throat. It's actually completely, in some circles, politically incorrect to say Merry Christmas, even if you're sincere. And that's a shame. And we allow that to happen. But again, getting back to Federer, he's a Jew and he has no problem with it. To me, kudos to you, Don, frankly. Because that's how it should be, Joe Pasillo.
Well, you're right. That's how it should be. I was put back a little bit. Dennis Prager, I saw him a couple years ago, and he was talking about how Christmas, and he was kind of making a similar argument that Don Feder is that Christmas is an American holiday. Now, we're talking right now at the front line with Joe and Joe on that level. I'm going to say one more time, particularly for those who might be just joining us, because I can hear people wanting to jump down our throats, okay? We are talking about Christmas, the message of Christmas, yes, okay, but not necessarily what is being celebrated per se, as we recognize, let's say, as Catholics, the incarnation of Jesus Christ, but just what Christmas means to us as a people, as Americans. Dennis Prager made that argument. I remember at the time I was put off by it. Now I'm not anymore. He said, Christmas is an American holiday and I celebrate it. And he said, but here's where he echoes what Federer's saying is that, but I acknowledge the roots of Christmas, what it is. It is the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay. He goes, I don't celebrate that, but I accept Christmas as an American holiday. And he basically said the same thing. That brings us all together. There is a spirit of the holiday that I could celebrate, okay? And I'm not offended by it whatsoever. And he was attacked. For having said that. And I'm sure Federer is being attacked right now for having said the same thing. Because many people on the political left, they are offended by nativity scenes, okay? They are offended by, let's say, any expression of Christianity in the public square, particularly traditional Christianity, which is Roman Catholicism. Okay. When you say Merry Christmas to people, they take up to it. And quite frankly, Joe, I mean, you tell me what you think. I think it's because we live in such a dark time that people don't even want to hear the name of Christ, not because they're offended, because they don't even want to acknowledge it. We're so bereft of let's say the message of Christianity in this country. We could go on and on about the list of things that we do to violate the natural law and God's law, from abortion, transgenderism, and all of it. I think a lot of people just don't want to hear it. Quite frankly, I think they're very curmudgeonly people. I think they go ballistic. Federer puts it like this. He says, the one thing that makes, and Joe, I love your comments on this. He said, the one thing that makes the left nervous about Christmas, okay, is because it wants America to be now, Joe, catch this, man, a cosmopolitan land of rootlessness. united by nothing more than our location on the globe and a vague belief in democracy. Anything that disunites us is good in its eyes. Now that's Feder saying that, not me. This is a Jewish American saying that, not a Neanderthal Catholic like from New Jersey like you or me. Okay, and he's spot on. They want disunity. Feder saying Christmas is the type of thing that brings us together, and the left can't stand it.
Well, I don't think that they actually think about disunity, but
So I think Joe got kicked off there a second. So we're gonna give him a second to come back. We would encourage you to stay with us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. Probably a little connection issue. Michael's in the chat room, says that the haters take his name in vain, Joe. Absolutely right, Michael. That's one thing. The people that don't believe in Christmas. One thing, Michael, is interesting. I experience this all the time. For those people who really don't like Christ or don't believe in him, they certainly use his name an awful lot. And it's never, believe me, it's never in any kind of a respectful way. And Michael's funny. In the name of Jesus, restore Joe's connection. I can't do the show alone. It is the front line with Joe and Joe. So I can keep it going as long as I can. But I feel like the guy who's fighting a boxing match, but he's got one arm tied behind his back. So he's not going to be very effective. He's certainly not going to win the match. But we do appreciate you all being here at the front line with Joe and Joe. We're not going on the Crusade channel this week. They're going to be off for a couple weeks. So we'll be back there probably in about 3 weeks from now. Just to acknowledge some people that are in the chat room until Joe comes back. We have Diane's with us. Hi, Diane. How you doing? Ina, Suzanne, Carolyn, Colin, my man Colin, Christine. That's right, Christine. I saw you in Mass the other day. God bless you. And Pamela and Sean Marie and a whole bunch of others. Remember, you could stick around for all the paid members of the Frontline TV. You could stick around afterwards, and you could join us in the chat room, even though I'm acknowledging now, of course, and we do try to address the chat room. This will be the chat room where you could ask some questions or whatever the case might be. So yeah, we'll get into that. But in the meantime, it really is important to acknowledge, that there are those people. We always say, as Roman Catholics, there are Catholics, and there are people of goodwill. Somebody like Feder, Don Feder, somebody like Dennis Prager. I would go so far. There's many people out there. Okay, the bottom line is that what we're up against is not these people, and they're not Catholic. They don't agree with the Catholic faith. They don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, but nonetheless, they don't feel threatened by us because there's nothing to be threatened by. But the reason why the left is threatened by is because at the end of the day, Christmas does unify us, and the left, and we've seen this. Joe and I, one of the reasons why we started doing this show, for about 3 years ago, is because the left can't stand anything that unifies us. They are of the devil, and what does the devil do? The devil divides. So anything that's going to be unifying in any way whatsoever, Satan has to destroy. And that's exactly what he does. Or at least that's what he tries to do. And unfortunately, many times he's successful. If you think about it, in Federer's article, he says, the left wants America to be a cosmopolitan land of rootlessness. Okay. T.S. Eliot actually alluded to this many times in The Wasteland, his famous poem, The Wasteland, when he says, "What are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish?" And he was commenting on modern times, and he's writing this in 1922. But the same thing that was happening then is happening now, only on a different level or on a higher level. But roots don't grow in this stony rubbish. You need good soil for roots to grow. The left doesn't want that. See, roots that grow is a threat to them. Okay? It is a threat to them, and they can't have that. So what happens is they have to promote rootlessness. That's what they want. They want the wasteland where there are no traditions. There, whether they're Jewish, Catholic, they want no traditions. They want no objective reality, no objective morality, none of it whatsoever. Because when you have a rootless people, you have an easily controllable people. When you have a rootless people, you have a group of people that you can actually enslave through a lot of other things that they tell you are substitutes for religion. Pornography comes to mind. Social media. Mark Zuckerberg actually said that at one point. He said social media does a lot or can take the place of religion in many ways. But we see what that is. That's empty. Again, it's rootless, and that's what the left can't stand. So what we are is, as Feder says, united by nothing more than our location on the globe. And remember, a vague, see, key word here, a vague belief in democracy. These people don't believe in democracy. We know that full well. Hold on, I'm trying to get Joe Resinello back as best I can here. I'll see if I could do that. And we hope you guys stay with us. Yeah, Diane's in the chat room. Diane says how ugly society has become. And again, I apologize at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe's having a connection issue. As long as you could see me, my big mouth is going to keep going tonight. Diane says went to public school back in the 70s. Jewish students and Christian students were joyful at Christmas and Hanukkah. We gave each other gifts. Right. But you have to convince people, especially in the modern times. Okay. A lot of the message out there, Diane, is anti-Christian or tries to sow this idea of anti-Jewish hatred on the part of Christians. They do that all the time. The left is notorious for trying to sow those seeds of that division. They also try to do it in terms of race, Diane. No, so what you get is, like Jews and Christians are supposed to hate each other because of religion. Okay. And we do have fundamental disagreements. There's no question about that. They don't accept Christ. That has been a source of contention between Catholics and Jews for 2,000 years. We get it. We got it. We know it. Okay. Mature people can understand it and talk about it. Okay. But the left does the same thing also in terms of race. They try to teach kids now, Diane, that if the 5-year-old kid goes to school, white kid, or let's say a white kid, that he's supposed to consider himself to be a racist, and that he's supposed to apologize somehow to a non-white kid because of something that they're supposedly that their ancestors did. I mean, this is the type of nonsense that we're up against. Every place you turn in America right now is bombarded with division, particularly sown by the media and particularly sown by Hollywood. Okay. So that we have to that's why we try to tell people at the front line with Joe and Joe all the time. We have to get rid of Hollywood. Hollywood sows more division by they make people the bad guys all the time. Okay. Obviously, they do whatever they can. Certainly people like us. I mean, people like us, we're the worst people in the world. I hope everybody knows that, right? Because we're Roman Catholic. I mean, that's just the way it is. And Hollywood does that. Hey, Joe Resinello's back.
I'm
Joe, I
back.
didn't. Joe, listen, I'm really not good at carrying the show. I just found out that I'm really not good at
Wow,
carrying the show for about
dude,
7 or 8 minutes.
what's it called? We're the Abbott and Costello of of social media,
Yeah,
Joe.
the only problem is who's Abbott and who's Costello. Yeah, I get
It's
the
on any
feeling that
given
I'm
night, it could
Costello.
be one or the other.
Well, we were
Patterson, New
talking
Jersey,
about.
both from Patterson, New Jersey, Abbott and Costello.
That's right. That's right.
But I
I
was
was
just
actually.
talking a little bit about rootlessness before we
Oh,
like
okay.
dicked out. Like, I don't think it's intentional, Joe. Like, what I do think is a lot of people who don't believe in God are rootless. It goes with the territory. People who have roots, deep roots in areas of the country, tradition, there is usually some semblance of God. It may not be Roman Catholic. It could be,
Mhm.
people in the South, they're Protestants, they could be Southern Baptists, they could be Methodists, but there's roots, and God is there because God keeps people there. It's a unifying like entity, God. It keeps marriages together. It keeps families together. Um, it keeps countries together, and it goes hand in hand. Like, I personally don't think that they think that as if they're plotting for a rootless society, but misery likes company. And again, people who have roots, usually there is some belief in God. There's some form of religious practice. Even like if it's not even a Christian practice, it could be a Buddhist practice. You go to Asia, it could be a Hindu practice, but there is something there. People who are, because it's like aimlessness, Joe, which frankly, and again, Christmas, it's almost like, dude, I think of, like, you take some of these folks, it's sad, actually. It's like a Dracula movie when they see the light, and all of a sudden they see the light and they're like,
Ah!
I
Yeah.
swear. Like, people
Yeah.
on Christmas, dude, it's first of all, it's very depressing. The holidays, I'll be honest, I always pray for people on the holidays because a lot of times there's a lot of suicides on holidays. People are depressed.
Right.
They have memories of maybe a family that once was, I don't know, but or never was, because no one is around. Like this morning, Christmas Day by me, we went to church. It was 8:30 mass. Dude, the road was as empty as if you were driving at 1 a.m. in the morning on
Right.
a Tuesday night.
Right.
No one was on Route 17. No one. So, I
Right.
mean, like, I think it's like an eeriness if you're not a part of that. And frankly, more and more people aren't a part of it. And another observation that I'll make on Christmas was in my particular church, which is a Roman Catholic church. There weren't as many, like, what they call them, C&E Catholics, like Christmas and Easter. When I was a
Mhm.
kid, um, that was the case. And Christmas, the church was packed, but then
Mhm.
during the year it wasn't. Dude, there wasn't a lot of that. It
Right.
was actually, believe it or not, fairly empty. My hand up. That was my
Well,
my
Joe,
wife said that.
when you're hanging on by a thread, and yeah, Christmas and Easter Catholics, I mean, that's not, I'm sorry, I know how judgmental it sounds. It's not real Catholicism. Just on the surface, you're not going to mass every week, okay? You're not a practicing Catholic if you're a Christmas and Easter Catholic. I mean, it's just the way it is. When you're hanging on by that thread, Joe, how easy is it to just let go of that
Well,
thread?
there's no doubt
And then
about
you
that.
and then you lose religion, altogether. Michael Jones points this out all the time. He says, Europe, once they went from, let's say, an objective Christianity, which is Catholic Christianity, okay, and then when you get to Luther, Calvin, and the rest of them, and then into the Enlightenment. And then so you get watered down Christianity, then you get watered down philosophy, and then eventually these people just say, "Well, why am I believing in any of it? I don't really live by it. I might as well just become an atheist." And these people, they look to other ideologies, and because you're already hanging on by a thread, all you got to do is just let it go. You're not deep. You're rootless. Like you said, you're not deep into the faith. You certainly don't believe in it. Maybe it's because of your own thing. Maybe it's because of poor catechesis. You could blame a lot of different things, but that's what's happened, Joe. Christmas and Easter and the need to go to Mass. I had somebody tell this to me a few months ago, Joe Rossinello, somebody who I like very, very much, a family member, and said to me, "Hey, Joe, why the priest? Why does he have to go on a homily about how you got to go to Mass every Sunday and you can't just go on Christmas and Easter?" I didn't want to hear that. Now I wanted to be charitable towards a guy because I really do like him, right? But wanted to say, dude, that's their job.
Well, it's a
That's their
sin.
job is to
I
tell
mean,
you that.
because
And
if you don't go to
eventually it
Mass,
did come
that's a
out in the
sin.
conversation. Eventually, Joe, it did come out in the conversation where I kind of mentioned, well, you do understand that, this is an obligation and you got to go to Mass every week and it's a commandment and the whole 9 yards. And I tried to explain it in a nice way. But you see the mentality, though? I don't want to hear that. You're judging me because I'm going. Well, then you're not far away from just leaving the church anyway.
Well, they're already out of the church because sadly, if you're not going every week, you're not in a state of grace. Again, this is not my
Right.
opinion. This is the teaching of the church. You have to go to church every week. You have to. It is part of the tenets of the faith. Just like you
Mhm.
have to, if you're a practicing Catholic, have to go to confession once a calendar year. That's at the minimum.
Right.
That's in the catechism once a year. And that's why a lot of churches during like Advent or Easter, Lent, will make it, they'll put that push because they're basically trying to aid you along the way.
Right.
But why do they do this? People don't know the benefits of being a practicing Catholic because they're not feeling the graces of it. People don't see the value in it. People do things that they value. Like it's like people, as the old saying is, put your money where your mouth is. Money, when people pay for things, as in you pay, it's your personal money, your personal time. That's what you value. Well, it's Sunday. It's your personal time. They don't value because they don't feel the benefits of it. Well, why don't they feel the benefits of it? Because in order to get the graces, you have to be in a state of grace. You have to go to confession. You have to be in a state of grace, and then you will feel the benefits of the sacrament. And then you see the value. If you know that Christ is on the altar, the true presence of Christ. And that is a gift open to all people if you ask him for it. I've always said, if you go to a church that has adoration and you say to Jesus, listen, I don't believe in you. I don't believe that you're up there, but I want to help me. He will. But when you do, again, your whole world changes. Your whole
Mhm.
life changes. You'll want to go to church every day because you're getting that grace. And it's not magic. It's not psychological. Just like if you eat a meal, no one's going to tell you if you're full, you're not full. You feel the grace. And also you have peace. And that's why they say that, Joe, because they're not experiencing that. There are many people that say that. They say, I've been going to church for 40 years and I don't see the point in it. I just do it because I have to. Well, my question would be, do you go to confession? When's the last time you went to confession? When's the last time you really opened yourself up to grace? The answer is you don't. And that's why they say that. And it's like they're closing the door on something that's free and great and beautiful, and they don't
Yeah,
know
no,
what they're
that's
missing. So they
right. No, that's true. And obviously, like and Joe, there's no judgment here, because I remember first coming back to the church, a lot of things I shook my head at, I didn't know about. I might have been described as one of those people. Somebody prayed for me, we prayed for them. I don't doubt that these are good people. I just think they need to go deeper into their faith and understand why the church teaches what it does, and you offer the right solution. If you want to know why some people believe on a deeper level, it's because they're actually taking the time to ask God to help them believe. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Okay. If you're going to church, I have to, on some level, believe it. You're not just doing it because you're an Italian in New Jersey and you think that I have to every week. On some level, you do believe in it, or else you wouldn't do it. You'd stay home and watch the Jet game. Okay. And get miserable that way. which would invariably happen. So, on some level, you believe, but if you believe, then pray to God to help your unbelief when it comes to all these other things, and He will answer. Now, Joe Resinello, go ahead. You were going to say
I
something.
was gonna say, but why don't people do that? Because they don't want to change. You see, Christ calls you to change. I don't want to change. Like, I like my sins, like the stuff that I do, whatever that stuff is, whatever your deal is. And that's why they don't do it. Because,
Hmm.
see, authentic Christianity, authentic Catholicism is a daily conversion. You're constantly pushed, sometimes literally, in a
Right,
direction you may not want to go. Like, is in like, dying to yourself, living a sacrificial life, all of which you need grace to do. A lot of people, especially cultural Catholics, Irish people, Polish people, Filipino people, Italian people, they grew up with that and they want no part of it. I am not going to be told what to do in my bedroom. Get the hell out of here. I am not going to be told what to do with my money. Get the hell out of here.
right,
Don't tell me what I have to do. And I'm not doing it. So
right.
therefore, the grace ends, Joe. And when the grace ends, frankly, you see no value because you're not getting anything out of it. And it's sort of like that's the slope, the slippery slope. Then it just goes down from there. You say, what am I going here for? Like, I'm not
Well,
getting anything out of it.
Well, a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people, that's why, and a lot of people have left the church. They've had that attitude. A lot of people are in the church and they are sincerely, maybe they're obstinate, again, no judgment here. That's why I only simply mention that those people that are going to mass and even the ones who say they don't get anything out of it, certainly, we pray for them. They're not the people that, necessarily we're talking about tonight when we're talking about. I mean, these are people who embrace Christmas. Okay. And again, there's some criticism there, but they understand the meaning of Christmas, the idea of goodwill. They understand the feeling of coming together as a people, as a nation. We celebrate Christmas. Okay. As Don Feder, we pointed out, he's a Jewish American who has no problem with Christmas whatsoever. In fact, values Christmas, and he's a Jew. Okay. But now here's the thing, Joe. Joe, I don't mean to break this to you as news here, but I'm going to anyway. There's some people in the world that are completely miserable. Okay. And for those of you out there who are not Italian, but you probably understood what I just said, there's some miserable jackasses in the world. Okay. And I'll tell you, Eddie Scari at the Federalist, he basically says flat out, they don't spread cheer, they spread grief. And so what you get here, and the reason why Joe and I are bringing it up at the front line with Joe and Joe, you get people that sometimes I think that are beyond. Now, nobody's beyond prayers. I don't want to say. I was about to misspeak. I don't want to say that. We should pray for the conversion of all people, okay? But there are some people who in the current state are just completely miserable, and they want you to join them in their misery. And that's what we can't allow. Joe Rossinello, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, Joe's referring to, as he said, Eddie Scott. How do you pronounce Scary?
I said
Scary?
sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
Scary.
want to call him Eddie Scary. He probably doesn't
Two
go by
R's
Eddie
there. That's
Scary.
quite a name.
I'm
But
going
anyway,
to say it's sorry.
but in this particular article, he quotes Brian Broom, and he wrote a Washington. Just to give you a little taste of what Joe's talking about, he wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post. This is what Broom had to say in Scari's article. He expressed his general disdain for the holiday spirit, announcing this was published in the Washington Post.
Washington Post, yes.
Uh, I hate Christmas. There have been years when I've skipped Christmas completely, taken advantage of the fact that the whole country is shut down and silent, and spent the day watching horror movies alone and eating Chinese takeaway. He wrote, someone you know and love may prefer this option. For those who hate the holidays, I stand with you. That is just sad because I'm going to tell you this. I grew up in a family that Christmas was always celebrated, always, my whole life. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, huge meals, family, celebration, joy, children. Like, that is so sad.
Right.
Like ultimately, whatever your belief is, That is so sad. Now, why does he feel this way? Because if you ask me, he has taken an aggressive stand against the meaning of Christmas, which is God. Aggressive. And the very mention of the name makes him do what he did. And that is
Right.
terribly sad. It is a testament to your choice, which is a bad one.
Right.
It's a bad one. Again,
If you hate Christmas and you hate the whole message of Christmas, okay, stop trying to spread that to other people. And they'll say, well, you spread the Christmas message. Yeah, but ours is a message of peace and hope and joy. Yours, you're just a miserable bastard who wants to sit at home, watch Netflix, probably some anti-Christian movie on Netflix, and eat Chinese food. And if you want that for yourself, God help you. We know you don't believe in God, Mr. Broom, okay? But then stay home and shut up. And don't get mad at us, by the way, when in the public square, because you want to get out into the public square, where we come down on the Washington Post for producing your stupid article. And if we see you right to your face, we call you the miserable bastard that you are. Don't get mad at us for saying that, okay? Because that's what because you're spreading gloom and doom. That's what you're doing because you are bereft of joy. You have no happiness in your life. And then you want to spread that to other people. Well, we don't want to allow you to do it. And shame on the Washington. I mean, the Washington Post is a trash rag anyway.
no, but it's
But
just
still, shame
sad.
on them on top of it for calling themselves a respectable publication. And they produce this nonsense. Remember, Joe, his main line in this article, I hate Christmas. That's what he said.
But I don't even know how you could hate Christmas. Step back from it objectively. Family gets together to enjoy themselves. Forget about the religious aspect of it for a moment. You're exchanging gifts out of the goodness of your heart with people. That's good. Like getting together and having a nice meal to celebrate the a family. That's good.
Right.
What's wrong with that? Like like forget about okay, obviously we go to church, obviously we celebrate the birth of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and that's the belief of Christians. But how can you say you hate Christmas? And if you feel that way, do you reflect on why objectively? Like, look in your heart for a minute. How can you hate something that is just fundamentally good? Like, it's objectively good. It's like walking an old lady across the street.
Joe,
That's
you know the way it
objectively
is.
good.
They'll come up with a million reasons why. They'll give you a list of 10 reasons. You know who they'll sound like? They'll sound like the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the Hitchens, Dennett, Harris, Dawkins crowd. They'll probably come up with a bunch of BS reasons why. You know what? You don't really believe in Christmas either because you're a hypocrite, blah, blah, blah. You don't feed the poor, blah, blah, blah. You voted for Donald Trump, so you're a racist, blah, blah, blah. How do you? Those are the reasons they'll come up with, except the one main reason they hate Christmas, because they hate Jesus Christ. They hate. Why do they hate the church? They don't hate the church because there's homosexual priests in the priesthood. They don't hate the church because there's hypocrites out there who say they're Catholic and don't act that way. They don't hate the church for those reasons. They say that those are the reasons. Okay, they hate the church for the same reason they hate Christmas. They hate Jesus Christ. I told you this before. All right, a very well-known comedian said, if Jesus came back today, I'd crucify him again. Okay, that's their attitude. That's why they hate Christmas. But they're not content. Remember, Joe, the old line, one thing about cliches, Joe Rossinello, is that they're rooted in the truth. Okay. That's why people use them all the time and then they become cliches. Okay. Misery loves company. And when
Well,
somebody
I
who hates
actually think
Jesus Christ, real quick, when
no, but
somebody who
I
hates,
think a lot of
go
times,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I think a lot of people who have issues with Christmas have a wound that's not being tended to, and they blame God. Like a lot of people who turn from God, there's a wound there under all of those things that they say. Like, sadly, all they have to do is turn to God. and frankly open the wound up. I always use the example of the big wheel when you hurt yourself as a kid and your mom sees you wipe out and she runs out into the street and she's like, "What happened?" And you're holding your knee and you don't want to show her the wound. But then you open your hand. She doesn't pry it open. You open your hands across your knee and she sees it. And then what does she do? She puts ointment, bacitracin ointment, she cleans it, and then it heals. You see, people are reluctant to show their wounds to God. God knows what they are. God knows you better than you do.
Right.
We're reluctant to do that. And then what happens when we don't do that? The wounds fester. It
Mhm.
becomes a cancer and your heart gets harder. Darkness spreads into your soul. The grace that was once there when you were a child is cut off and your life spirals. You see, all the person has to do is open themselves up. It's like the movie Scrooged, like with Bill Murray. As a child, they show like his dad was kind of like a mean guy about like it was like, well, here's the
Right.
veal. Here's 25 pounds of veal. Merry Christmas. And he just it didn't register with him until finally it clicked. And then he was full of joy. There's meaning there. It's the
Joe, I
same
agree
thing.
with you. Joe, I agree with you. Okay. And I don't want you to take me the wrong way. Um, you tend to be a little bit more, maybe a lot more charitable than I am. Okay. I'm not saying I'm not charitable. I'm not trying to suggest that. Okay. And you will give the benefit of the doubt, I think, sometimes where I'll give it partially. So I just think some people are just evil bastards. I think some people just completely embrace for whatever reason, Joe. For what, and I know a lot of people are wounded. Don't get me wrong. In many ways, Joe, we're wounded. Okay, what did we grow up in some sort of we didn't grow up with saints as parents. Okay, we grew up in on the street in Newark, New Jersey. Not an easiest place to grow up in. Okay, so we can argue that we have wounds, and I don't doubt what you're saying for a second. But at one point, as St. Paul said, I was a child. I spoke as a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. I always took that to mean that when you grow up, you have to make a choice. No matter how what kind of hardship you went through, we pray for you. We're there for you. We'll help you in any way we can. But you got to make a choice. I think some people just simply choose to be evil, miserable bastards. I really do. And
Well,
they
they
want that
choose it.
misery. They want that misery for you. Now, maybe they were wounded. Okay. I happen to think that the singer who calls herself Madonna, I think she was wounded as a child. I don't know how, because I don't think a person can embrace such anti-Catholicism, okay, in the popular culture the way she has without the wound. But she still made a choice.
Of course she
And
did.
that's my point. These people, Brian Broom, this other person, uh, Jenny Avens, that let's say Eddie Scari talks about another one. Again, lack of hope, don't want to go to parties because she's worried about the C word, the severe flu that's gone around and killed people. She doesn't, she's another one. She's not because she's saying that because she cares about people or anything like that. She wants to embrace the idea of spreading misery. And people like this make their choices. And that's why I say they've chosen to spread their misery. And because of that, I think that makes them, maybe I won't use the word evil, but I will say they're acting in a very, I don't know, Joe. I'll hand it over to you because I don't want to be
No,
uncharitable,
no, no,
Joe.
because I think people, you're right. Listen, we do make a choice and people make bad choices and there are consequences for your choice. And you're also held responsible for your choices, no matter what they are, good or bad. But what I'm saying is under it. You see, it's a grace to turn to God. There's humility in it. And God is always working on people as life moves on, like through things, through events, through sorrows, and always calling to them. It's a sad reality when you see something like this. It's looking at someone, to be honest with you, and you just say, gosh, man, you're missing out. You're missing out. And it's sad. And there's a reason behind that. I don't know
Mhm.
what it is. You do, though. And ultimately, what people need, I think, is they need to feel loved. They need to know. That's why families that have a father that is the head of the household, the father is the head of the household, particularly when it comes to religious matters. That family, the children, have a 70% chance that they will believe in God, as opposed to families that don't have that. It drops dramatically because you can understand God the Father easier than you can if you don't have the real Father.
Right.
It makes it easier. And there's a lot of reasons why people have gotten hurt. People blame things on the church. People won't change. There's a million reasons. Ultimately, what will change them is love.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. You have this until you die, until to make that choice. You see, once you're dead, it's over. And not everyone goes to heaven. That is factual. Factual. That's biblical out of Christ's mouth. We have chances. And I actually believe in every soul, whether they're baptized or not, because God loves everybody. There are moments of clarity through your life. God puts things in your way to make you make a choice, and you choose. And when we stand before God, each of us will stand before God. And he will say, I didn't know, as the scripture says, I don't know you, Christ says. Oh, but I did this. I don't know you. Why? He'll say, what about that time when you were 17, when that moment happened, blah, blah, blah. And it's almost like God sticks his head around the corner for a split second and says, like, I'm real and I'm here, and just tip away. Then you make a choice. At 32 years old, remember that time when blah, 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 this happened and you were down and out, and for a minute you prayed for a second and then you had peace? Do you remember that? Yeah, I do. Well, why didn't you change then? I made myself known to you. Oh, do you remember when you were 50 years old? That time when this blah, 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 blah happened, and then I kind of said, you said a prayer, a split second prayer, and I made myself known to you for 5 seconds of peace and joy. Why didn't you change? Oh,
Right.
oh, oh, oh. This is, I think, the way it goes. We'll have no excuse when it's over. And it's those minutes that we respond. And Christmas is one of those moments because the world stops. It's silent.
Well,
Every
that's why Joe Resinello at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. That's why I think there's been a concerted attack on Christmas. And now it's been going on from the time we were kids, but it's really ramped up. It was never this bad, where you really have to question whether or not you should even offer someone verbally a Merry Christmas without some sort of fear. And it's been going on, but it's the reason why you said that's why the devil has attacked Christmas, because Christmas is that time of the year where the message is loud and clear. Whatever tradition you're in, whatever religion you're in, the message of Christmas is that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son, that he who believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. It's called the incarnation. And if you are a person, as you like to say all the time, Joe Resinello at the front line with Joe and Joe, if you're a person seeking truth and you hear the true message, not the gift giving, although that's nice, not all the bacala salad, even though that's great, not all the fried fish, because we know we love it, okay? And the Johnny Walker Black with your uncle or your cousin or whatever, with all that's beautiful. We love it. That's part of the tradition. But if you're truly a person that's seeking the truth, and you hear the true message of Christmas, which is the celebration of the incarnation of the eternal word of Jesus Christ, it makes you think. And it can very well, and I'm sure it has in human history, we won't know about it until the end of time, that it causes conversions, and has caused conversions, okay?
Well, I'll
Because
tell you,
people
I
of
mean, Christmas
goodwill.
Day for me, in my church, it wasn't that crowded, to be honest, but I did see a few faces, a couple families that I don't usually see. And I saw an
Mhm.
old man come in. He was probably well into his 70s. He came in alone and he was dressed in a suit. And I never saw him. And I said a prayer for him to myself when I looked at him. I said to myself, gosh, this guy looks like he's alone. For some reason, he's come to church today. He went in the back. He said a prayer by a saint statue. He sat alone in the back. I said to myself, gosh, pray for this poor man. Pray for him. For some reason, he's here. You see,
Right.
it's a moment of God reaching out to us again and again. He does it every year. For some reason, that man came in. And that's open for everybody. That's why Christmas is good for America. Objectively speaking, it's a ray of light into a
Hmm.
dark world. And here's the thing. If you don't believe what I'm saying, if you think it's some hokey superstition or some psychological delusion, what I would say is I invite you to go to a church and say a prayer and speak in common terms to God and basically say, I just don't believe in you. What is this? Why do people for centuries on end come here? What is about it? What's it about? I'll tell you something. I think you'll find something there
Right.
if you did that sincerely, and your life might change.
Well,
Why do
let's
you, but also, Joe, why would you want to bask in misery?
Because
Like,
Joe, you have to ask you listen, you have to ask yourself that is a mystery that I don't understand. When I think of the knowledge that the angels had right after their creation, according to Catholic tradition, the angels had all knowledge of God right after their creation, and they made a choice. And I think in my mind, why would you choose that? Joe, love at the end of the day, if you want to see what love is, and we say it all the time on the show, okay, love is not a noun, love is a verb. Now, an example of that action would be what we're talking about at Christmas, the action of God, the second person of the Blessed Trinity, coming into the world, condescending to become one of us in everything except sin. Why would God do that? Because the action is an act of love. Okay. The love itself is an action. And Joe, some people, they don't, they are opposed. Love has to be a choice. And some people just refuse. They make a choice to refuse to know, love, and serve God. They don't want it. They're first of all, they're lied to by the devil, but then I would take it all the way to the devil. Why would even he choose what he knew to be the destructive path? Pride, whatever you
well, I
want to.
won't
People,
serve. I
I
think
won't
some
serve.
people, that comes down to that because ultimately, behind a belief in a God is that you are acknowledging something that's greater than you.
Right,
There are people that can't do that. Just like there are people who can't say these words, I'm sorry or I'm wrong.
right.
I'm They're unteachable. I've learned this in my own adult life. There are people I've encountered in my own family. You could lay something out, forget about religion. I'm talking mathematical fact, just like math. 2 + 2 is 4. I could lay out an objective fact to somebody. They won't acknowledge it, nor will they even choose to look at it. It's undeniable,
Right,
it's unrefutable
right.
because of pride. It's a will. I will not acknowledge that because if I acknowledge that, I deny my very presence in my life and all of my choices, and I'm not about to do that. So
Well,
I won't do that.
right. Well, let's piggyback on that. And I'm almost, Joe, I gotta say, I'm almost afraid to speak right now because Sean Marie's in the chat room. She says, Joe P quit. Joe R was on a roll. You know what that reminds me of? Remember last year, somebody was in the chat room and said, why doesn't the fat guy let the skinny guy talk more? I remember that. I was like, I'm the fat guy. But along those lines, all right, because we were almost coming up on an hour, but we're going to spend a few more minutes. Is that we just want to mention now? You mentioned earlier, Joe. You use words like darkness, refusal to bend the knee, and being mired in this. This story, and we're just going to cover it briefly, just a few minutes. David Andrusko in Life
Oh,
News talks about this particular feminist. All right, and what she wants for Christmas. Joe, I'm going to let you tell all those that are listening out there to us at the front line with Joe and Joe, because I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, and Drusco in Life News reports on this. Carolyn Riley, she's a reporter of reproductive rights. She calls herself a reproductive rights advocate. She currently is a legal fellow for Rewire News Group, which is located in Boston. This is what Riley had to say. She said, "You'll get what I'm saying in a moment." She basically says abortion is healthcare. Abortion is a moral good, and it is life-saving and life-affirming. Here it goes. Abortion is freedom, and what's better at Christmas than that? For all, teens deserve abortion, access without stigma, cost, or interference from their parents or the state. Few things bring me more joy than making a list of things to get and give. But this holiday season, my number one gift isn't anything I'll find under a tree. Instead, this year, at the top of my Santa's list is teen access to abortion. Now, this is a twisted person. Now, again, I sometimes try to get into their head. Why does she think like this? Well, clearly, she's a secular person. She looks at sex as just an activity of pleasure. And obviously, we all know that when people have intercourse, there's a possibility of a child. And that wasn't intended. And we also,
Right.
we live in the real world. People have sex without the intent of having a child. Even married people do that. Most married people do that. So what do? I don't want this child. We get rid of it. So they're looking at it from a different lens. But what I would say to Miss Riley is this. First of all, and this is an objective statement, not a religious one. Abortion hurts women. This is an objective statement. Women who have abortions are wounded. Talk to psychiatrists. This is factual. This is not dogmatic. High rates of suicide, high rates of drug use, high rates of promiscuity. They don't want anything to do with men. There's tons of effects of a woman that has abortion. Why would you want that for a teen? Why would you want that for a teen? Now, that's an objective statement.
Could it be what we said earlier? Is because I would venture to say that this girl probably has had one or more abortions, and she wants to promote that for the simple reason that, remember something. See, they make the same argument that the homosexuals do when you argue about the higher rate of suicide amongst homosexual men in particular, okay? And those women who have had abortions, they make the same argument. Well, if the Catholic Church would just stop telling them that they're wrong, maybe they wouldn't kill themselves. Listen, if the Catholic Church didn't say one word, those numbers wouldn't change.
You would know
It's
you're
what
wrong.
you would know you're wrong, because when you see, Mike Jones uses language. That's why I like him a lot, because he uses appropriate language. He doesn't say abortion or sodomy, it violates the natural law. He says it does violence to the natural law. What does that mean? What do you think the effect is going to be on the human person who knows the natural law, because it's written in your heart? Whether you want to believe it or not, you know it's wrong. The church doesn't have to say a word about your abortion. They don't have to say a word about your sodomy, okay? And those rates of suicide and depression and drug addiction and alcoholism and everything else are going to be just as high, because you know it to be wrong. And this Caroline Riley, Joe, I would bet a good amount of money this girl has had one or more abortions, and she wants company in her misery.
Well, people want to justify behavior, and many times people who are very vocal on these subjects, like you said, there's a wound there. You know, like you said, those numbers are real, Joe, and it's like any sinful behavior. You come to the end of yourself, whatever the sinful behavior is. It's built into our DNA. It's called the natural law. Someone in the chat room said it's written on your heart. You see, I've said this on this show. I've used to say this when I taught RCIA. The laws, you want to like get something in life, like where something that could guide your life, where it's something you digest a truth about life. And this is one thing I will say that I have learned. The laws of God apply to you whether you acknowledge them or not. And if you choose to go against those laws in your life, you will do violence to yourself.
Right.
Whether you acknowledge it or not. The sun is there, whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. You can be like, there is no sun. It's blazing hot out. No, I don't see it. Okay, whatever. We could play that game. Why are you miserable? Why can't you sleep at night? Why have you hadn't had a joyful moment in years? Something's wrong.
Right.
And why aren't you doing anything about it? You
Right.
see, that's a life devoid of God. And then
Right.
how's this sound? Look at people who do truly have God. Don't point to the person that's a hypocrite, quote unquote. We're all hypocrites because we're all sinners. But the
Right.
person who does something bad, look at the people in the world, and they are out there who have functional lives because they truly cling to God. Look at their families. Look at their uniqueness. Look at the authentic joy and the peace in their life, why they stand out. It's simply because of God. And then here's the thing. Why do you still bask in your misery?
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself that if you hear this and you think I'm crazy.
Right.
Why? Who's crazy? I think you're crazy, actually, because you bask in your misery.
Right. And
And
that's
that is sad.
it's very sad, and then we're gonna have to leave it there. But it's very sad, Joe Rossinello, because then what they do, and like I said, and this is one of the reasons why we have to do something about this godforsaken media that we have. You get organs like the New York Times and the Washington Post. They give these miserable people a platform. And again, I would say this about there's a picture of this young woman, Caroline Riley, and I'm sorry, sometimes an image tells you all you need. Okay, she looks like a broken person. She really does. I'm not making fun. I'm not doing that. Okay. I said a long time ago, I'm going to stop doing that, except when it comes to AOC. But having said that, okay, um, I'm not going to do that. She looks like a broken person. She's all painted up, right? She's got all tats all over. And again, I'm not judging just solely on that. Okay. Shaved head. She doesn't look like she's in very good shape. She just looks like an unhappy person. She just outwardly. And a girl like that needs our prayers because, but again, she's the miserable one. And then she wants to spread that misery by telling other teenage girls, okay, you should go out and have an abortion. Joe, final thoughts on tonight's conversation.
Well, Christmas is, what is it, 12 days of Christmas. It's not just one day. Enjoy it.
Right?
Invite people to your house, cook, have a cup of coffee, have a scotch, go outside to your neighbor, bring him a cup of coffee, talk to people. Spread the joy. People have to see joy. I'll be honest with you, and they'll see you're different. I'll tell you my Christmas, the greatest gift that happened to me this Christmas. Joe Pasil was at my house with his wife and his son. We had a good time. But to be honest with you, there's a gentleman on my street. He lost his wife. He's alone, and his daughter has cancer. And at 6 o'clock, I knocked on his door. I had food. A lot. We had too much food because I'm Italian. We always make too much food. His house was pitch black at 6 o'clock, as if it was like 3 a.m. in the morning. I knocked on his door. I gave him a big plate of food, and he thanked me. And he said, "God bless you, Joe." That was the greatest gift that I received this Christmas. That's what Christmas is. And it's good for America. And it's good for you. And if you hear my voice and you think I'm crazy, or you think, no, I'm not crazy. I'm telling you something. That joy is for you. It's for everybody. And that's what Christmas is about. So Merry Christmas. Enjoy the
Merry Christmas.
12 days and spread some joy.
I gotta say this before we go real quick. The one thing, Joe, that I remind people, and it's sad because I think at one point I took down the video of Charlie Brown saying, "Can anybody tell me what Christmas is all about?" And Linus comes over and says, "I could tell you what Christmas is about, Charlie Brown." And he walks out onto the stage and he goes, "Lights, please." And then he quotes the first chapter of St. Luke, right? He says, "For unto you a Savior is born in the city of David." And he goes through the whole story. And then he walks off the stage. He goes up to Charlie Brown and he says, "That's what Christmas is about, Charlie Brown." And every time me what you just said, in other words, good tidings, joy. That man was probably hurting. There's no question he was hurting. You spread joy and good tidings to him. in a very dark place that he's in, okay? And you showed him the light that Christmas is all about. You kind of reminded me of the scene. I was kind of being a little humorous with Charlie Brown, but you understand my point. There is an objective message to Christmas. You showed that with your neighbor. That's what we all need to do. And you're right. It's good for our souls because it acknowledges the birth of Christ, and it's good for our country. So let's leave it there, Joe Resinello. Remember, everybody out there, we are on the Crusade Channel. Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Frontline TV on YouTube. We would ask you to go like, subscribe, share. Like this video, share this video. Subscribe to our channel. Share it with your friends, please. And the Veritas Catholic Radio Network. You could find us 13, Joe, what is it?
1039, 1350 AM, 1039 FM.
39 FM in Connecticut, Westchester, Northern Long Island. Soon to be, hopefully, in New York City. So keep that in your prayers. Download the Veritas Catholic Network Radio mobile app. And we always love being here with you all and conversing with you all. Stick around. There's going to be a private chat for about maybe 15, 20 minutes after this show. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation that's going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.